Thanks, David. Quite interesting. Up until now, I hadn't seen David's presentation all the way through. You'll see a definite link between what David is saying, I'm saying, and the next speaker, what you recognise what the message we're trying to get across. So, technology. I think it's pretty safe to say that everyone's got one of these little devices in their pocket right now. Probably some of you still checking emails. This instrument, handheld instrument, is responsible for completely changing most of our lives over the past 20, 30 years. Quite amazing what we can do with that. When you look at the surrounding photographs, the camera, the music, the phone, the map, this thing can tell us pretty much anything. We can bank with it, we can order food with it. So technology in this one item is absolutely incredible. When I was running through this last night, I said to the wife, yeah, at this point I'm going to get the map out and I'm going to ask Google what day it is. And she said to me, if you really need to ask what day it is, I don't think you should be giving a presentation. Which is fair comment. So we've also got this guy. We now have the ability to send a car into space. That's absolutely unbelievable. The potential for the next events in this industry is absolutely unbelievable. Now, when they actually got that car into space, they found there was already a moto service station up there trying to charge $3,500 for a coffee. You know. So, I'm not saying we shouldn't embrace technology. It would be foolish to say that. We absolutely need to get the best out of our technology. OGTC are spending money left, right and centre to get the benefit of that. And that's the right way to go. What I want to touch on is more about getting the best out of what we already do, getting the fundamentals correct. I started in this industry in 1989, and for the first 14 years, I was an NDT technician, primarily doing radiography and ultrasonics. Most of that work was on new builds, so new projects, extensions to existing projects, sprinkled in with a little bit of in-service inspection, but mainly new welds. If I was producing the radiography report for a new weld, I would have a real specific acceptance criteria, so I knew exactly what I was recording. I would give dimensions, I would give pass-fail at the end of the report. 13 years later on, I moved into the offshore environment. First asset I was on was the Murchison in 2003. Then I moved on to the Ninian Central. That completely changed what I'd been doing before, because up until then, everything had been very specific. I almost had done no visual inspections whatsoever at that point. So I get onto the platform. We've got a guy called the OIE. He tells me, while you're doing your pipe work inspections, you're doing the visual inspections as well. Big step change. So I had to go and have a look and see how the hell do I do one of these. So at that point, we've got the OIE giving us the inspections to do without really giving us too much information. Dave touched on work packs. If you had a close look at work packs, there's a lot of copy and paste errors in them, and we didn't really give them much regard. So then I'm producing a visual inspection report. I'm handing that over. That goes onshore, and it completely disappears. I don't see where it goes. I've no idea what happens to it, to be honest. A couple of years down the line, bit of self-education, a few more qualifications. I'm the guy, it's the OIE. So then I've got the opportunity to look at the actual circle and see what's actually going on. I've come to realise pretty quickly that what we're getting is relatively poor quality information from onshore. We're providing reports that we don't get any feedback on, so we don't know if what we're producing is right, wrong, or indifferent. And then that information is going onshore, and I've no idea what happens to it. Over that time frame, we've got lots of failures happening. Almost without exception, any failures that happened on the assets that I've worked on, I knew about. There was absolutely no surprise. Okay, we've got a failure somewhere, Stevie. That's no surprise. We recorded that 5 years ago. We've done nothing about it. It's happened over and over and over again. So, what are the reasons for this? For me, there's probably three significant reasons. I'm not saying these are all the reasons, but these are the ones that, in my experience, have an impact on what we're trying to do. We're not very good at recording the information when we carry out inspections. Some people are good at it, some people aren't so good at it. And we don't use the information very well once we've got it. Something we still do, and this, over the time I've been in the industry, is still unbelievable. We use the wrong inspection techniques quite a lot. And we also have quite poor management of data over the piece. I'm going to show you some real examples from inspection reports. I'm sure you'll all have seen some crackers. Most of the pipework is in good condition. Doesn't really tell us very much, does it? All of the welds are sound. Yeah, great. Here's my all-time favourite. All readings above and below nominal wall thickness. Don't laugh, if you read it, that's actually factually correct. And of course, we've got this, the good old stalwart. So, you've got to ask a question, is that because the people that we're using to carry out inspections are incompetent? I don't think it is. We've got all these bodies, we've got guys, most of the guys offshore will have several qualifications in the inspection techniques they're allowed to use from all, if not some of these bodies here. So, why do we get to where we are? Onshore as well as offshore. And I was just talking, we've got one of my OIEs in here, I was talking to him yesterday about feeding back information to the guys that produce reports. We consistently accept substandard inspection. We don't challenge 9 times out of 10, and I've seen it on a daily basis. People looking at reports, having a laugh about it. What does that mean? They don't send any information back and ask the guys what they mean. That's criminal. We make assumptions instead of clarifying. Again, you're not quite sure if something says on the report, pick the phone up and ask the guy that's done the report. If he doesn't know he's done something wrong, you'll get the same stuff next time round. Then we go and assess our equipment based on all this dodgy information. Something else we do quite often is we use the wrong inspection technique. Now you might think the industry's got over that problem. We haven't. I was looking at a report just from last year, which was on an air receiver. We sent people out to do a map scan on 3.5mm wall thickness air receiver to look for pitting. Anybody that knows anything about that scenario knows you can't find pitting using that technique, and you certainly can't find it on 3.5mm wall thickness. No surprise then that 2 weeks after that inspection was complete, and I didn't have the report from that, there was a failure. We eventually got the report about a week later, and there was a recorded wall thickness at the area of failure of 1.8mm. Perfect example, wrong technique, and waste of money. Something else we're not very good at is managing the data that we've already got. Now, I won't go into that. Fraser's next presentation, we'll touch on that in a bit more detail. So where does that leave us? I really believe that no one starts out wanting to do a bad RBI. Everybody tries to get the right RBI in place. But when you go through the cycle that I've just discussed, we get the enactment and the planning in place. We send out relatively poor work packs. We accept relatively poor reports. Then we carry out assessments on all that not very good information, and we feed it into what was generally accepted as being a good RBI, and essentially that degrades and devalues that RBI, and it feeds back into the same cycle, and we do that over a long period of time. And then we end up, we don't really have any good idea about our equipment condition. Something else that I think we're guilty of, as a discipline, we very rarely give good news. We're generally telling you when there's something wrong. So we've got a leak, we need to replace some pipework, we need to do some FM, all of that good stuff that you all know about. Here's a scenario that we've probably all had. Yep, you know what I'm going to say, don't you? Okay, shutdown manager, you've got 8 vessels in the shutdown next year. We can't do that. Why don't you go and have a look and reduce the amount of vessels we're going to do? Right, okay, we'll go away and have a look, we come back. We've got 4 now, what about 4? No, can't do 4, going back and have another look. Right, we've reduced it down to 2. Oh well, 2, that's not so bad. However, the partners have been in touch and we're going to move the shutdown another 2 years in advance. Do we really need to do those 2 vessels? No. How did we start at 8 and get to 0? Why weren't we robust enough to say we don't need to do any vessels until this point in time? This possibly ties in with what Tyler was talking about with the Monte Carlo stuff. If you've got options, you can provide better information. Traffic lights. My opinion on traffic lights is that it creates a real false impression of equipment condition. People automatically associate traffic lights with a risk matrix. They're not the same thing. What we do is we cry wolf quite a lot. So those 8 vessels that we talked about doing in a shutdown, they're all condition red. We have to get in there. 2 weeks later, we're down to 0. They couldn't have been red in the first place. Shutdown manager said to me some time ago, I've never been able to not challenge a vessel out of a shutdown. That's our fault. That's our fault for not providing robust information, unchallengeable information in the first place. Quite a lot to fix. How do we fix it? On a very fundamental level, I think these are some of the things that we need to do in order to get working towards being much better at what we do. We need to understand each other's roles within the integrity management cycle. Last year we had a workshop with our OIEs, with our work pack engineers, with our integrity engineers, and we just sat down and went through the IM cycle and understood each other's roles within that cycle. So what impact does a bad work pack have on my OIE? What impact does a bad report have on my integrity engineer? And so on and so forth. We got some real good feedback from that exercise, and we're going to have another one this year. That one speaks for itself. Something I think we have to do a lot more of. Engage and speak with your NDT provider. Ask your NDT provider what's the best technique rather than you telling them. 9 times out of 10, we get it right, but when we get it wrong, it's usually not good. Encourage the reporting of facts. Subjective reports don't help anybody, but the guys won't know unless you challenge. Challenge the reports, ask for information, ask for clarity, and get what you want out of your inspection reports. Once you've done that, we need to carry out proper reviews. Don't just churn the information through the machine. That's not any good to anyone. We must record our equipment condition accurately. Back to the traffic lights. Don't tell me it's a red when it's not a red. That then leads into having good, dynamic, flexible RBI outputs based on actual condition of equipment into the cycle the way it's meant to, and it makes everything work so much better. And remember, bad news is good. Even Lewis Hamilton had to learn how to drive in a go-kart before he got into an F1. So don't forget about the fundamentals. And if anybody's wondering about the photograph at the start, that's my other inspection job. That's me in Germany judging terriers for the Jack Russell Club of Great Britain. Thank you.